There are moments I have in life when I meet somebody new and I just know immediately that I am in the presence of a badass. And Beth Santos is one of them. I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Beth over the years, with my involvement with Wanderful, and she's just someone I see as such a leader, a badass, and also a highly accomplished woman. And I wanted to kind of dive into some of the mindset that she has around both travel and life. And in today's podcast episode, we're going to talk about those things. But if you're new here, welcome. This is Everyday Badassery, a podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. I'm your host, Christine Lozada. This is a passion project for me. It is something I've chosen to do because part of my North Star, part of my mission in life is to help people to step out of their comfort zone and think about things and do things a little bit differently, to be 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. And the way Beth talks and her mindset is rad. So let's bring her
in. My name is Beth. I'm the founder and CEO of an international women's travel community called Wanderful. I am an author. I wrote a book called Wonder Woman not too long ago. And I'm a mom of 3, which is amazing to say out loud still. I just can't even believe that I have that many children.
So outnumbered. So
outnumbered. And I am a lover of travel and of life.
And Beth is such a badass, and I'm so excited to dive into today's episode because Beth, I have just seen you kicking so much ass for so many years, but I would love to hear what's behind the mission. We're diving into all the things today, but I want to start with your mission around what it means. What does it mean to you to redefine travel for women worldwide?
You know, women have been told for so long that travel is not for us. Honestly, that's the only way I can really describe it is when I first set out in the world myself, traveling alone, I really genuinely thought I was one of the only people doing it. And the reality of that is that the travel industry is absolutely dominated by women. Women make almost all of the decisions in travel. We travel more than men do. We travel alone more than men do. We are outnumbering and outspending in every vertical, and yet we're still spoken to as the afterthought. And the women who are spoken to fit into a very, very, very narrow physical, emotional age description. And I think that is really at the heart of what Wanderful is about helping women be seen as they are and giving them the space to go out and experience the world. And community in doing that. Community as a form of representation, but community also as a form of emotional support and relief and friendships, because a lot of the women in our community don't make friendships as easily when they're traveling all the time. Nobody makes friendships as easily when you're traveling all the time, at home anyway. And yet it's one of the richest things that you can do. And so we create a whole community of women who can support each other in that way and live the life that they deserve and redefine this whole concept of what travel is and should be.
Yes, I already know. If you're watching or listening to today's podcast episode, I know a lot of you are not familiar with what Wanderful is. So if someone wanted to find and learn more about Wanderful, where would you recommend that they go?
Yeah. So first of all, I would take them to our URL, she'swanderful.com. That's Wanderful with an A. We're also on social media with that same handle, She's Wanderful. That's the first place to start. Wanderful, it started as a blog in 2009. I was traveling a lot on my own, sharing my own experiences and sharing the experiences of other women who are also traveling solo around the world. And it has morphed into far more than a blog. We have an online community that you can join and get access to virtual events, this 24/7 network of other women you can meet up with wherever you go around the world, online forums where you can connect with each other. We run a conference called the WITS Creator Summit, which is for travel content creators. We launched a festival called Wanderfest a couple years ago that is just celebrating sisterhood and travel. We run content creator campaigns really because we started from the place of content creation. So we do a lot of like online storytelling. What else do we do? I have a podcast called 85%. I mean, it is all in this universe. I think that's kind of the cool thing about this is we've created a universe where travel is normalized for anyone. And my hope is that you can go there and feel yourself being seen, being represented. But it all starts just going to the website, sheswanderful.com. We'll have anything in our community. We have trips that we plan, a whole bunch of resources for women who want to travel the world.
And don't forget, all of this is going to be in the show notes for you. So make sure you check it out there. And today's actually, the day we're filming this is a special day because
Yes.
Wanderful's not a baby anymore. How old does Wanderful
No,
turn today?
we're a tween today. We are 11, which is wild. And even, I mean, it's like one of those things, 11 asterisk, because really, you know, the blogging started in 2009. That was 15 years ago. You know, we incorporated as a business in 2013. That's kind of like the number that we use, but slow growth, which I actually think is really important to talk about a lot because a lot of people, you know, this concept of overnight success is so told again and again. And I think people always feel like if I'm not immediately successful, I'm not doing it right. But a lot of these things are really long marathons, you know, of little successes that add up over time. And then one day you look back and you're like, oh my God, we're 11 years old. What just happened?
Yeah, that, right? Which is why, like, even with this podcast episode, we started it with your mission, right? And like, as you're unpacking all of the things that Wanderful offers and has, it's like, a lot of things. And it didn't happen overnight. And I was tempted to ask you, like, you know, to speak on Wanderful's success, but I mean, you talked about the community, which is what it's really about, and is about having a place where people can come together to have these conversations, to be seen, be heard, and be able to relate with others. And not only that, it's a very diverse community of all kinds of people who travel in all kinds of different ways. And yet we can come together and share this love of travel and this desire, you know, to see the world, which I think is really beautiful. I think another thing that you said that I think is so important, because like we are trained in this day and age to believe in overnight success, because like that's what you see all the time, both in the news and in social media, but also like small things train us for that. You know, as Americans, we love fast food, not all of us, but a lot of us, or things like Amazon Prime. Like I remember when I used to work at Walmart.com, if we shipped it to you and it arrived in 3 weeks, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That is different now. Yeah. Now you're just like, oh, actually, I'm not going to say it, because if I say Alexa, she will actually respond. You know, if you say like, where's my package? You order, Christine, you ordered it 2 hours ago, like chill is probably what she would say. But being conscious of like sticking to your mission, like what is it that you really want in whatever goal you're working toward. And it's all about the long game.
It is.
Wanderful's 11 amazing years, but 11 years.
And 11 successes, failures, pivots, turnarounds. I mean, I think that that's so important. And I was just reflecting with someone a few days ago about the power of longevity and just the fact that sometimes like just being in the business for a certain amount of time gives you so much. You know, like we have so much institutional knowledge now about what the world was like before and what this industry was like before. And we've just been to like 11 years worth of conferences, and we've had 11 years worth of collaborations that we've crossed paths with a lot of people. A lot of people know who we are. You know, being in this space, we've earned a lot of trust from people. Being in this space, and I would like to say, you know, being good business people, not necessarily like good at business, but like good to work with, you know, like a good person to be with. And I think those things follow you for as long as you're in industries. And so, so I think that's important. And I think that when I was in kind of the early days of Wanderful and I was in business school, I think there was a lot of pressure to grow fast and grow big. And,
Mhm.
people would always say like, oh, raise money. But if you don't raise money, that's okay too. And it was like, that they like didn't mean that, you're like, oh yeah, it's okay also, but also raise money, like that's kind of like the success metric. And now I actually a lot of times push people against that because I
Mhm.
say, I've seen now so many businesses that just, it's like a fast mountain peak. It's like they scale up, they're famous, and then they're dead before you know it. It's just
Yeah.
gone. And the slower the growth, the slower the decline on the same side. I think like
Mm.
sometimes what I found is these businesses that take a little bit more time to really evolve, those are the ones that stay around forever because they're very intentional and they're not just looking for like the fast win. And I think that's an important way for us to consider businesses. Not that every business is meant to be like that, but I think not enough spotlight has been given to the ones that have.
I totally agree. There isn't just like in so many aspects of life, like there is a way that you see a lot of people or a lot of businesses doing something, but that's not the only way to be successful. And the way that most businesses will measure success doesn't have to be the way that you personally measure success. It can all be
Yeah.
different. And
Yeah.
I think it's important. It always comes back, right? To like, what are you trying to do here? What impact do you want to leave on the world? Which
Yeah.
brings me to this next part, which is around um, a book that I've been reading. Actually, I've been doing a book club with my mom for a book
I love
that's
that.
recently come out called Wonder Woman. And as we get into this, don't forget all of this info is going to be in the show notes below. And if you're not watching today's podcast, but listening to it, Beth is showing her book on screen right now. All of it's going to be in the show notes for you, though. But tell us, what is your book about?
First of all, I love that you're reading this book with your mom. Like, honestly, I wish everybody read this book with their mom or their daughter because that is exactly how I wrote this book. And
Mm,
I wrote it because like let me explain a little bit more of what this book is because I think it's misunderstood sometimes because there are so many books that exist out there that are travel guides.
mm,
There's a lot of publications out there that are here's how to do X, Y, and Z, or things to pack, or how to pick a destination, or whatever, all that stuff. And all of that is incredibly important. But there's something that's missing. And what's missing is, first of all, the audience is women who are solo travelers or thinking about traveling solo for the first time. Really, that's like the gold audience member is like the woman who's thinking about traveling alone who's never done it before. But there's useful information for anyone in travel, honestly, or any woman in travel, especially. Um, but there is, if you're thinking about that as for this audience member, the thing that's missing for them is some much deeper conversations about who you're made to believe travel is for, which we've talked about, what you're made to believe travel is, how you fit into that, and a lot of the very confusing and very exciting things that happen when you go out into the world alone. Because when you go out into the world alone, the world is right in front of your face. There is no buffer. You don't have a whole bunch of other people contextualizing things for you from your own home culture. And you don't have a travel buddy that can say, hey, check that out. I just saw that over there. Let's go there this afternoon. You have to do a lot of that. And there wasn't anyone who had prepared me for that moment when I first started traveling
mm,
alone. The questions that I had about my gender and how women were treated in the places that I visited, or the fact that I would have these really deep moments of discomfort where I saw something that I really didn't agree with, but then questioned, should I actually say something? Is it even my place to say
mm.
something? So this book Wonder Woman is a incredible deep dive into the messages that I wish more women were told when they're traveling alone. And it talks about hard stuff. It's really honest, but I also hope that it's inspiring, that it's funny, that it gives some cute anecdotes that teach you along the way. It's really like if you had this loving aunt who, knew what you were about to go into and was like, girl, let me just sit you down and like tell you some stuff because you're going to need to know it. And I want you to hear it from me. And that's what this book is. It's my hope is that for years to come, you know somebody who's going out for the first time and you're an active traveler yourself, you can say, there is so much that's going to happen underneath all these layers. You're going to ask yourself questions you've never asked before. You're going to notice things about yourself you've never noticed before. I don't have all of the words to explain this to you, but this book does, and I want you to read it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for this book.
Ah, that's powerful. Oh, I love this. Part of the reason why I wanted so badly to book club this book with my mom, and I didn't just send it to her at home. I had her read it while she was on a very different kind of trip for her. And so there's kind of a couple of things I want to unpack. One is my mom is very conservative. Like she has had a very like traditional Filipino woman upbringing in which like my dad called all of the shots. She's never traveled alone. And, you know, in the places that they travel, it's always them together or our whole family together. And so she's never traveled alone. And I really wanted her to have this different perspective of traveling alone while she was traveling in a different way than she ever has, which is I invited her, and my mom is like a very avid cruiser, but like old school traditional cruiser. And I brought her on a very modern, new and fresh and different take on cruising trip, which was on Virgin Voyages with me. And I didn't want to hold back. Like I wanted to show my mom the loud lifestyle that I have, the personality that I am, because my mom, like a lot of people don't know this about me. I was so shy growing up, and you can relate to this because you have 3 kids. I was so shy growing up that the principal and my report cards would always tell my parents that they thought something might be wrong with me because I never spoke. Like this is how quiet I was as a child, because with immigrant parents, they really just wanted you to fit in, not make a scene, and just, you know, go through your education and grow up and join the world of, you know, corporate workers and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to show my mom who I had become as a creator. And so she was traveling in a different way on this kind of fresh and new modern cruise. And she was with me in this context. But I also was trying to carve out moments for her where she could. And a lot of times when people are like, oh, I'm considering, you know, that big trip abroad by myself. And I'm like, have you staycationed at home by yourself first? Like before you go do the big wild thing. But my idea with my mom was, how can I carve out solo moments for her within a trip that she's with me? And so, you know, like I help her to set up, like, I want you to go do this activity with all of these strangers, experience this thing without me, because I've been out drinking the night before and this is an early morning activity and it's great for you.
This. Yeah.
And so she got to go have her solo moments within a trip. And so, you know, if you're listening to this, if you're going to go take a trip with your family, your friends, your significant other, carve out an hour, 2 hours, half a day, whatever time feels comfortable for you to go explore on your own and just see what that's like before you contemplate taking the really big trip. While you're out there for those couple hours, go read this book at the same time. What's one tip that you would give somebody? There's also tactics in the book. But
there's so many good ones. But that, and I think to respond quickly, I think you're absolutely, you know, we really, when we talk about solo travel, we think it's going to be like a 6-week expedition to Nepal.
Yeah, like go big, go home, or go home thing.
To be that. And I love that you're designing these moments for your mom, because it can be a moment, like just a moment of stepping outside, doing something differently, letting yourself get a little bit uncomfortable, letting yourself learn. Yes. You can do that anywhere in the world. You don't have to go even far away. You don't have to spend weeks or years or months. It could be minutes. You know, it really can. And I think that giving yourself the freedom to see travel in that way, I think opens so many doors. Yes. And so I think that that's a great tip on its own, of just find opportunities to get comfortable wherever you are. But one of my favorite things that I like to recommend to people when they're thinking about traveling alone is just the fact that you have all the time you want. You know, even if you only have like 3 days for your trip, the great thing about being on your own is that you don't have to sign up to anybody else's agenda. You can do what you want to do, which means literally, if you want to spend the entire day at the airport, just very slowly getting your bags and getting a cup of coffee
Mhm.
and hanging out and people watching, you can do that. You do not have to fill your itinerary with this
Mm.
and that and everything to do. And in fact, I have this tip in the book called a day zero, which is literally give yourself a day to just be present, to just show up,
Mm.
to look around, to take a walk, to observe, to shuffle through some brochures, to get to know your area. Because not only is it going to give you that time that you deserve to just be present, but it also is really helpful from like a safety and logistics perspective. You can,
Yes.
okay, noted, this is what my hotel looks like, or noted, this is where the free breakfast is located, or noted, this is the grocery store that's across the street that I could go to in case I'm hungry, or noted, here's how to use the bus in this area. I mean, all of those things, again, because they're on your shoulders when you're traveling alone, it's up to you to notice those things. But I think giving yourself the time and the space to just
Mhm.
discover and to be unplanned and to just let yourself follow whatever whim that you have, this is the only time you're going to be able to do that. You have
Yeah.
nobody else's expectations except your own. So lean into that.
Which is such a powerful place to be because for a lot of especially women, it's rare to have moments in our lives where we're not worried about anyone else
Yeah.
except ourselves. We're
Yep.
so used to being the caretaker, for being the caregiver, for
Yep.
looking after somebody, whether a child or a significant other or a friend, or we want to always be helping. And now the only person you need to help is yourself. And you might not
Yeah.
even need any help. You can just spend time with yourself. I think that's so
And
powerful.
we're conditioned as women to believe that if you're alone, it was an accident or a mistake or something was wrong. Like you're alone because you can't get a boyfriend, or you're alone because somebody
Mhm.
stood you up, or you're alone because your friends were busy, and not you're alone because you were actively choosing to be with yourself in that moment. And I
Yeah.
have had so many people who will come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, I have a spouse, so I don't travel alone," or "I have kids and
Mhm.
I don't travel alone." And I was like, "I have 3 kids and a husband, and you know what? Traveling by myself is the best gift to give myself, because that's saying you are somebody who's worth traveling with too. You
Yeah.
yourself are worth traveling with. You don't need to have other people in order to go
That's
travel."
so true. And it doesn't have to be some crazy, crazy trip. Like coming back to the purpose of this podcast. It's not about like that singular once in a lifetime big badass trip. It's those small 1% moments that lead up to those big things.
Yep.
And what is your 1% today, given the advice that we're giving you here? And I would say one more thing on this topic, because not only are we conditioned to care for others and always be looking out for others, we're also conditioned, especially in our society in the United States, to always be very conscious of what other people are thinking of us and
Mm,
how people are judging
yeah.
us. And when I travel alone, these are some of my most ugly moments of my life. Like not necessarily like I'm going emotionally through a bad thing. Like no, I'm physically very very ugly cuz like I don't have anyone I'm trying to look good for. Like I'm just exploring the world and that's going to happen in like not without brushed hair and probably with my pajamas on and a pair of
Yep.
Nikes or something like that. But I always call upon this book that I love, which is 101 essays that will make you think differently about life,
Oh,
I think
cool.
by Brianna West. And one of the things that she asks in there is, if nobody was judging you, what would you be doing right now? And I
Hmm.
ask that question a lot in different parts of life because when I first started solo traveling, I would put on the pink lipstick and the makeup and then I was just like, why am I doing that? Like
Yeah.
for whom?
Yep.
Um, and and actually, and then it goes back to my everyday life. For whom?
Yep.
And then it wasn't until the pandemic really when we were all at home and just in pajamas that I realized like I actually really enjoy putting on makeup, and I was like, it's for me. And
Yeah.
then that made me feel differently about it. But
Yeah.
I'll still have my very ugly moments in solo travel. Let's do like
It's
what
true.
one quick fire round. Give me a two most favorite places you've traveled alone.
Oh my gosh. I I love Brazil, of course. Um, I think there's the great thing is there's so many different parts of Brazil that you can go to, and people are so helpful. I actually had, like, this is not a fire answer now, but I had this really cool, this woman who came up to me when I was in Brazil once, and she noticed that I was alone, and she was like, I have to tell you all this information right now. She like lived down the street from the hotel I was staying at, and she just like felt it upon herself to like impart with me the wisdom of being a local immediately in this moment. And I just loved that. Um, and I also really loved going to New Zealand. It
Mm.
was it was a work trip actually that I traveled for. And it was like such a whirlwind. It was 2 days that I was there. And so I only saw so much. But I think because it was such a whirlwind, it was wild because I think people often think that you get like the most culture shock when you're going to places that are very different from yours, which I think
Mm.
is true, but also traveling so far to go to a place that feels like pretty much home was like mind blowing for me. I was like, I have
I
been
know
on
that
a plane
feeling.
for like 16 hours and it looks kind of the same here, like, and yet stunning in its own way. Of course, New Zealand has like the most beautiful environment ever, but just like walking around the streets of Auckland and being like, wow, I'm just like in a city with other people. And that kind of just shows you how small our world is in a lot of ways too, and how your destination is somebody's home too. And like, I'm
Mm.
having this wild adventure, far, far away from home, and other people are just like living a basic normal life that day. And I don't know, something about that was like so exciting and jarring for me.
I love that. Oh, I love that. It also reminds me, like, we always feel like we have to go so far to feel like we're traveling. Yet, wherever you live or spend a lot of your time in the world is foreign to somebody, is a
Yes.
unique place to somebody.
Yes.
And you might be used to it, but finding those gems even in your backyard or remembering to appreciate what you have there. I mean, I thought San Diego was nowhere special until I left and was like, "Oh wow, I grew up somewhere really cool." Like,
Be like, wow,
hi.
the weather everywhere is horrible.
Yeah, I did say that. I put on 3 sweatshirts on my first snow when I lived in New York City and was like, "Wow, a 3rd sweatshirt doesn't make me warmer? I don't get it." That didn't work out well for me. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that you are all feeling exactly what I feel, which is holy shit. Like this woman has her shit together. Beth is such a leader in my eyes. And I, prior to jumping onto this podcast, was telling her about the number of conversations I've had with other women who've experienced, and actually I'll say it this way, who have experienced your presence. And I'm going to ask you like impossible to answer questions around like breaking down, like where, if you were to like, have you always been as confident as you are, or where did that come from? Because like one of the things I know you can hear loud and clear. This is why I love podcasts. You can feel somebody when you are
Mm.
listening to them, when you have them in your ear. And when Beth is in my ear, I'm like, oh man, that's a powerhouse woman right there. All right, explain. Go ahead. Confidence. Where did it come from?
I don't know. I don't actually see myself as all that confident, all that more confident than anyone else, which is funny. It's like how you view yourself and how you view. I think there's I will say I have always done whatever I wanted. I don't know
Mm.
why. And I think like somebody one day is like literally going to do like a what's that called when they like dissect your whole body. They're going to do that, and then they're going to find that I'm like missing some sort of like risk aversion gene that like other people have, because I'm not afraid of just jumping into something. I don't know why. I know I should be, but I'm a very creative person. I just love trying new things. It never occurred to me to worry about stability or meeting somebody else's expectations of me. I just was like, I got this one shot. This is my life. I'm going to do whatever I want. And
Yes.
so I don't know. I think, like, not to get like super morbid on this, although I guess I did because I already talked about dissecting my own body, but
Go on.
as a Portuguese American, in our Portuguese culture, there's a lot of old people, just like a lot of old people in Portugal. So I've been to like a lot of funerals, growing up, I went to a lot of funerals. And I think it just was imparted on me very early, the fact that like we die. This is
Mm-hmm.
the end. Sometimes your end is really far away. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you think
Mm-hmm.
you have tons of life to live and you don't. And I think I was blessed in that way with the reminder that all of this is very, very short. And if I'm putting off anything, I might, not that I might regret it because I'll be dead, but like, it's going to suck. So why not just do the thing that you want to do and just kind of figure it out along the way? And that's just how I've lived. I think, of course, I've made smart decisions. I like to think, like, to take care of myself. I'm not just like, I'm going to move to Budapest and who cares about my kids? Like, it's not
Bye.
quite like that. But I think that I try to give myself grace, and I think, especially honestly in my 30s, I have discovered that more. I'm 38 now, and I think there was a period of time where I was just like, I don't actually, I do care what other people think more than I should, but even more so every day I'm kind of like, I don't need to. Doesn't matter.
Mm,
It does not matter. And most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, if somebody has an issue with you, it's actually usually that they have an issue with themselves or
yeah,
society or something that has nothing to do with you at all. And you just let it roll off your back. And so
so
I
true.
think that's just how I've chosen to live this one wild and crazy life.
I love that mindset. I feel like in our society, we reject this idea or ignore or don't want to acknowledge this idea of death. And
Yeah.
for me, that you might have moments in life where it's like you hear stories, or like for me, meeting Meatball, my boyfriend Lou,
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah.
from the Bronx. Like people's lifespans there are very short. Like the number
Yeah.
of funerals that I went to, like as soon as I met him, I was like, this is way too many. Like these are not old people
It's not.
either. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not normal
Yeah.
also. But
Yeah.
we have one shot at the life we're living right now. There might be something else afterwards, depending on what you believe in, who knows? But the one that's happening right now is happening right now, and that moment is now gone. And I wonder, Beth, I mean, I'm sure there are times in your life where people you genuinely care about have said, no, like, I don't agree with whatever choice that you're making. And how do you stay strong to what it is that you want to do in those moments?
I just say, like, I don't care.
My
It's
advice
funny.
to you all is just let them know that you don't care.
My
I'll take it.
professional opinion is don't care. No, but it's funny because I was talking to my parents about this, like when I wrote the book, and in the acknowledgments, I acknowledged my parents and the fact that, when I was 22 years old, I moved to Sao Tome and Principe, a country I'd never heard of, to live there. And the real story is that I moved there to live with a guy that I didn't even know, who I met at a friend of a friend's picnic, who was like, I have a nonprofit, you can stay at my house. And like, I mean, like, as a parent, I'm like, my parents they must have gone nuts, right? Like, I can't, but I don't remember that. Like, I honestly don't remember them having any sort of concern whatsoever. And I remember asking my parents, like, what did you think about that when I told you, and they were kind of like, Beth, you've always just done whatever you've wanted. And we knew that
Mm,
there was just no way we were going to be able to like stop you. And we just hoped that
mm.
we had taught you well enough,
That's
and like that.
powerful. That's releasing control, but also believing in themselves that they had done their best and
Yeah.
had the faith in you to
Yeah.
do the damn things.
Yeah.
I love that
I
answer.
think so. No, I mean, it was cool. No. And I think that that's at the end of the day, like, I don't know if there has, I think I've just blatantly ignored it. Cause if somebody has an opinion about how I'm living my life, who cares? It's not your life. So I don't care to listen to that information.
I recently saw this meme, and my version of it is I sent my drone high and I looked everywhere. I looked across the horizon and I realized no matter where I looked, I still didn't have a fuck to give about your opinion. That's one of my new favorite things. I
I love
already
it.
know this answer for myself, but I would love to hear from you, Beth. Are you a badass? Why or why not? I ask this question to everybody on my podcast.
Yeah, I think I am. I don't
Why?
know. I don't know if I would just say that outright though, but I'm glad that you let me say it because I am proud of myself. I think I've done a lot and I'm proud that I don't let these things in my life stop me. I think that there needs to be more of that. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to look so perfect all the time, and
Mhm.
modern society does not help. Photoshop does not help us to
Mhm.
be happy with what we look like.
Yes.
All of these things teach us over and over and over that you are not good enough, right? Editing software, social media, like everything that is optimized is telling us that you are not already optimized as you are. And you know what? You are optimized as you are. You're like the best that you can be, and I think we're not saying that to ourselves enough, that you can do it messy, you can do it scared,
Mm.
just do it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. I would rather do it messy than not do it at all.
Yes. I love this answer. Are you ready to reflect on something with me real quick?
Yeah.
Because, spoiler alert, this episode leads into a mini series in which I do a podcast episode with many of both the those who were nominated and those who won the most recent 2024 Bessie Awards. And there's something that happened that night at the Bessie Awards dinner, the pre-dinner before the awards
Mm,
ceremony.
I love
And Beth had asked this beautiful question around asking people to talk, basically talking about your wins, like put yourself in the spotlight. What are you most proud of?
that.
I don't know if you had said it as this year, but
Yeah.
just like, what are you most proud of?
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed, and it was acknowledged at the table, that like the first people who shared, there was a little bit of like this, like, kind of quietly tooting their horn, and then someone just being like, I'm just gonna say it, like I'm gonna say what I'm proud of, and like that horn went super loud and gave permission for everyone else's horns to be even louder, to the point where the first people were like, I wish my horn was at that level, like shouting from the
Mm-hmm.
mountaintops. And
Yeah.
for me, my reflection on that was like, yo, own your badassery from the get-go, because
Yeah.
the amount of empowerment it gives to others to also own their badassery is. Now I'm just reflecting on this. This question
Yeah.
is for you, Beth. Please reflect on that conversation.
No, I agree. I thought that was so special, and it was our first time having a dinner for all of the
Mhm.
finalists. And to be clear, for people who are listening, so every year we run this award show called the Bessie Awards. It honors women of impact and brands in the travel industry, and ones that are really pushing this industry forward to be more representative, more equitable for women worldwide. And there are 9 categories. There's 3 finalists in each category, which means there's 27 total finalists. And we've run this award show since 2019. So this is our 5th year. And never had we gotten our finalists together. It's something that honestly I have thought about probably since year 1, but we never had the budget for it, to be
Mm.
honest. It was just one of those things. Money is, meals are expensive at a hotel, 27 people, it's a lot of money. Um, but this year we did. And so I was like, we're going to have a dinner. We're going to invite all of our finalists. We're also going to invite some of the past winners that we know are in attendance so that they can come and join. And because this is not just about, these award shows, like they can be great, but they can also be real uppity real fast. It can be like, I can't relate to this person. And I was like, I want this to be something where, yes, we're celebrating people who have done really amazing things, but we're also celebrating ourselves, right? Like we are
Mm.
being the change. We are seeing it in front of each other, and we're celebrating all of us and all of our wins, and the fact that these are all women who are rising, which is lifting the whole tide for all of us. And that dinner was a chance for all the finalists to meet each other again for the first time, which was just
Mhm.
so cool to be like, I want you to celebrate the fact that you're a finalist. It don't matter if you win or not, because at the end of the day, winning is just like literally, we polled like whatever, a couple thousand people. There's billions of people in the world. It is a very small sample size. Everybody's a winner. But it was cool. And I think, to your point, at that dinner, it was so uplifting, and everyone was
Mhm.
so willing to cheer each other on. And I thought that it's not in every room where you can ask people to brag about themselves. And, if
Mm.
it were a table of 27 men, I feel like it might go differently. You probably wouldn't have to ask them to talk about something that they're proud of, but there is a way. And I say that because I agree with you that you should speak about yourself. I also understand why people don't, why people like, they don't want to look pompous. They don't want to look like they're bragging. You know, nobody wants like a braggart at their table. That's just annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is a way to do it, to say, I am proud of myself, you know, and I value myself and I care about myself. And I think all of us are incredible. And I want to also acknowledge that I've worked really hard for this moment. And that's very different from like, I'm the best, rest of you all suck. You know,
Yes.
like that's a different conversation and a different energy. It was great.
That's so true. And I think you're getting a glimpse into the kind of community and the kind of people that Beth surrounds herself with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, even if you're listening or watching this, pause it right now and do it for yourself. Like, what are some of the things that you are so proud of that you should acknowledge out loud to yourself? Because that's really, really important. And also, Bessie, if you're like, what is Bessie's? Bessie Coleman is not some rando. She's actually a really amazing woman who's also a pilot. And all of this info is in the show notes. So make sure you check it out. And also check out WITS. And also check out Beth, which, speaking of that, Beth, where can people find you? It's all in the show notes, but tell us anyway. Where can
you can
people
find me
you?
In the show notes? No.
She's literally down there.
And also so I have my own URL. It's bethsantos.com. It's my name. You can find me on Instagram at MaximumBeth. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just, you know, you can just search for Beth Santos, but it's linkedin.com/in/SantosBeth. It's just the reverse of my name. And that's mainly where I roll. I have a podcast I mentioned called 85%. We interview trailblazing women in travel. That's at 85%podcast.com. That's 85% all spelled out podcast. And the book is thewonderwomanbook.com. So there's all my URLs.
All the things, and they're in the show notes along with Beth in there. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
In today's podcast episode can be found in the show notes. So make sure you're checking it out, especially if you're listening to this or watching this. Maybe you shouldn't be watching this while you're driving, but if you are, make sure you keep your eyes on the road. All of that is in the show notes for you. One of the things I reflect on as I asked Beth this question of like, oh, she just does it. She just does it. And if you have moments where like, you're like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And someone's telling you otherwise, consider the way Beth thinks about it. She knows what she wants to do and she will just do it. Why not? That is one of my favorite things to ask in life. And I learned this from someone I used to work closely with in the corporate world, where she would challenge traditional ways of thinking by just asking those two words. Why not? Why not? Why not just do the things that you want? Why not? Beth Santos, you can find her info in the show notes below. Connect with her and connect with me. I'm at Christine Lozada everywhere. If something spoke to you in today's podcast episode, please share it. Share it with someone it might help. Leave a review. It really does help to distribute this to more people. And in the meantime, go do the things that you want to do. Go forth. Be badass, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Ciao.